John Anderson sat in the VIP section of Le Bernardin, one of the finest restaurants in New York City. The soft glow of the chandeliers cast a golden hue over the elegantly dressed patrons, and the murmur of refined conversation blended with the gentle clinking of silverware. Despite the lavish surroundings, John wasn't paying attention. He absentmindedly flipped through the menu, but his mind was elsewhere. As the founder and CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire, he was used to high-stakes meetings, expensive dinners, and luxury. Yet tonight, he dined alone, looking for a rare moment of solitude after a long day of negotiations. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "Good evening, sir. May I take your order?" John looked up, and his breath caught in his throat. Standing before him, dressed in a crisp white shirt and black apron, was a man he hadn't seen in over a decade. Michael Carter. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the restaurant seemed to fade into the background. "Michael?" John finally managed to say, his voice laced with disbelief. Michael froze. His face, once full of youthful ambition, now looked older, worn, but his sharp blue eyes remained the same. "John?" he said, barely above a whisper. An unbelievable reunion. John stood up so quickly that his chair scraped loudly against the marble floor. He barely noticed the curious glances from other diners as he grabbed Michael's arm. "What the hell are you doing here?" Michael glanced around nervously. I work here." John couldn't process it. Michael Carter, his best friend from college, the guy who had once been voted most likely to succeed at Harvard, was now a waiter? "Come with me," John said firmly, pulling Michael toward the exit. "I'm still on shift," Michael protested weakly. "Not anymore." John tossed a few $100 bills onto the table without even glancing at the amount. "Let's go." Michael hesitated, but eventually sighed, untied his apron, and followed John out into the cool night air. The story of a fallen dream. Outside, the city was alive with the sounds of honking taxis and the distant hum of street performers. John turned to his old friend, scanning his face. "Michael, what the hell happened to you?" Michael let out a bitter chuckle, running a hand through his dark brown hair. "It's a long story." John crossed his arms. "I've got time." Michael sighed, leaning against the brick wall of the restaurant. "After we graduated, I did what we always planned. I started my own company, a software startup. At first, things were great. Investors were interested and we were gaining traction. But then, things went south." He exhaled slowly, his breath visible in the chilly evening air. "The funding dried up. We ran into legal issues with patents. Competitors crushed us. I put everything I had into that company, and when it failed, I lost everything. Not just money, my house, my savings, my confidence." John listened in silence. Michael continued. "I tried again and again. 3 startups, 3 failures. Eventually, I was drowning in debt. Creditors were knocking on my door. I had no choice but to take any job I could find. Bartender, delivery driver, and now, a waiter." His voice softened. "I wanted to reach out to you, John, but every time I saw your name in Forbes or heard about you making another billion-dollar deal, I couldn't. I was too ashamed." John felt a pang of guilt. While he had been living in penthouses and flying on private jets, his best friend had been struggling just to get by. He took a deep breath. "Michael, you're a damn idiot." Michael blinked. "Excuse me?" John shook his head. "If the roles were reversed, would you have let me suffer alone?" Michael hesitated, then sighed. "No." "Then why the hell did you think I wouldn't be here for you?" Michael didn't answer. His eyes were downcast, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. John clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Come with me tomorrow. I have something for you." Michael frowned. "John, I don't need charity." "It's not charity," John said firmly. It's an opportunity. Take it or leave it. After a long pause, Michael nodded. A second chance. The next morning, Michael found himself standing in the lobby of Anderson Tech, one of the most successful companies in the country. The sheer scale of the place was overwhelming. Massive glass walls, employees in sleek suits, moving with purpose, and an air of innovation buzzing through the building. John led him into a private conference room. "I'm not giving you a job," John said as they sat down. Michael raised an eyebrow. "Then why am I here?" "I'm giving you a project," John corrected. "A real one. You and I both know you're still one of the smartest guys I've ever met. I want you to lead a new division. Build something from the ground up, just like we used to talk about in college." Michael's heart pounded. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," John replied. "I don't need another executive who just follows orders. I need someone who can create. I need you." Michael leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face. A part of him still doubted himself. After so many failures, could he really do this? But then he looked at John. His best friend believed in him, even when he couldn't believe in himself. After a long moment, he nodded. "All right, let's do this." The comeback 2 years later, Michael wasn't a waiter anymore. Under his leadership, Anderson Tech launched a groundbreaking AI-driven security platform, revolutionizing the industry. He had not only paid off his debts, but was now a senior executive in one of the fastest-growing companies in the country. One evening, John and Michael sat in John's penthouse overlooking Manhattan. They clinked glasses of bourbon, the city, lights reflecting in their eyes. Michael smirked. "If you hadn't dragged me out of that restaurant 2 years ago, I'd probably still be serving overpriced steaks." John laughed. "Yeah, well, I wasn't about to let my best friend waste his talent on refilling water glasses." Michael looked out at the skyline, a genuine smile on his face. "I owe you everything, John." John shook his head. "Nah, man. You did the work. I just reminded you who the hell you are." Michael chuckled. "Yeah, I guess I just needed someone to believe in me." John raised his glass. "To never giving up," Michael grinned. "To second chances." And with that, they drank. Not as billionaire and former waiter, but as two best friends who had finally found their way back to their dreams. The future of Michael Carter. 2 years after that fateful night at Le Bernardin, Michael Carter had transformed from a struggling waiter into a powerhouse in the tech industry. Under his leadership, Anderson Tech's new cybersecurity division had skyrocketed, launching cutting-edge AI-driven security solutions that revolutionized online protection. The media hailed him as a comeback genius, and his name began appearing in Forbes, Business Insider, and TechCrunch. But Michael wasn't done yet. The next big move one evening, as he and John Anderson sipped bourbon on John's penthouse rooftop, Michael looked out at the glittering Manhattan skyline. "You ever think about starting something of your own again?" John asked, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Michael smirked. "Funny. I was just about to talk to